Diego Cortez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. We had Vanessa Selbst with us last week, and she proved to be a very engaging and articulate young
Delightful.
woman. And she's back, and very interesting to hear about not only her tournament triumphs, but theories behind No Limit and PLO, and we're going to roll right into it. I read where you talked about your preference for tournaments, and a lot of these strategies really applying even more to tournaments. Besides the ethnic stereotyping, which we're probably overplaying, I assume that you pick up a lot of tells in terms of just people that are trying to grind their way up the ladder or make a final table, and that you just prey on those like a vulture.
Well, I mean, there's just so many things that you can like make reads on. Absolutely. I mean, you definitely know just from one hand how they're going to respond to like, you know, the next like 30 different moves that you're going to make. I mean, even just from table talk, when they say something like, you know, they folded ace queen or whatever, you know, you should be like, but then you see them, you know, they talk about one time when they, you know, folded ace queen to just like, they raise the button and someone shoves from the big blind, and they just like fold ace queen like it's no problem. And then you see them 3-bet a hand like nines. You're just like, okay, well, if nines in your 3-betting range, and I know from your conversation, then it's like, I'm just going to 4-bet you relentlessly,
Literally.
obviously. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you definitely pick up things, and I think it's being able to transfer that information. You know, if you see someone check behind, you know, what's obviously the best hand by far, then you know they're not going to be value betting you thin. Then all of a sudden they make like a weird bet, then it's more likely to be a bluff. You know, things like that where it doesn't have to be the same situation, but just really picking up, you know, things that people do and sort of transferring them to new situations. I think it's one of the most important skills.
One thing, and our research department might have been correct or incorrect about this, is that
who's the research department? You?
In this case, today it's me.
Okay.
Or the internet, Wikipedia.
Research department, yeah.
We have Wikipedia on retainer. Is that most players of your generation really grew up playing on the internet, and maybe the first hand of poker they played, or, you know, first real money hand was on the internet. But at least what I read was that you started playing in home games, and kind of your basic training was in live poker.
Yeah, absolutely. I was playing Foxwoods, like cash games, a 5-5 game up there for probably most of my senior year of college.
Maybe that has also been a big contributor to success in live tournaments, where not just picking up on betting patterns, but people's demeanor and kind of what their approach is and what their goal is kind of comes through just in their movements.
No, I think that that's really important. And, you know, I've gotten into arguments with my friends because I'm the one that, you know, they will badmouth some live player because they make some horrible fundamental mistake in terms of like a 17 big blind shove or whatever. And it's like, yeah, obviously that's a huge mistake, but then they don't, you know, realize that, okay, but this player is just pouncing on weakness at every opportunity. Actually, I had a very long conversation with another player about how, you know, they were trying to say that, I don't know, it was some stack size, and I was saying how, you know, this player like 3-bet ace-jack, and it was clearly like they had to fold to an all-in. They're like, well, they're turning ace-jack into a bluff, and that's like a terrible play in that spot. And I said, yeah, but this is like some live, really good player that's been playing a long time and just realized that this person can't call.
Right.
And it's like, there were 6 big blinds in the pot. Yeah. There were 6 big blinds in the pot. It's like, okay, yeah, you're turning ace-jack into 7-deuce, but he doesn't have 7-deuce. He has ace-jack, and he knows that this guy just like can't call, so he raises. And, you know, so I think there's a lot of, you know, people are very stuffy on the internet, you know, the internet players about their fundamentals, and when it comes down to it, there's definitely a lot to be said for just making a read on someone and just putting some pressure on them. You know, you talk about the main event winners, you know, you see there are 3 of we all know who they are over the past few years, maybe the not best players that have won the main event, but every one of them is just like stupidly aggressive. I mean, you'll never see some donkey that's just like completely passive, and, you know, it's like their bets don't make any sense, but I'll tell you, when you get to 20 people left in the main event and you're playing for millions of dollars, all of a sudden, you know, stupid aggression seems to be a pretty good strategy.
They put themselves in a position to be.
A lot of times, bets that don't make sense give you a big problem. You know, you're facing a bet that doesn't make sense. What do you do with it?
When you're facing calling in for your tournament life, giving up the chance at potentially $8 million, like that bet's gonna work a lot of the time.
Well, also to generalize about the fundamentals, I think that having a very strong fundamental base will get you very far, and maybe that last step to winning multiple big, huge scores is knowing when to deviate from the fundamentals and not being so rigid.
I think that's right. I mean, you could definitely win poker on fundamentals, but, you know, the tournaments are getting harder and the edges are getting smaller, and if you really want to distinguish yourself as a player, I think that there's, you know, all sorts of things that, exactly, like you don't always have to, you know, like I had a tournament, well, I don't want to really say what I did, but I flatted a hand that...
You can give one.
I flat called a hand that, like, was against a thinking player that knew I was a good player, that I should like never have flatted, just because I knew that this person was going to put me on a huge hand. I was like, if I flop huge, great. And if not, then he's going to check fold because the way I flatted with my stack, he's going to assume I have a much bigger hand than I actually had. So it's sort of just a leveling war of like, you think I have awesome fundamentals, but I'm actually going to play a hand fundamentally terrible just because I'm going to win based on that. And I happen to flop the nuts, and he flopped the set, so whatever. But
that's also
must be nice. Must be nice.
Yeah.
LOL.
It's funny how even these other stories about the stupidly aggressive players always end with them hitting the set because they're not happy over pair. And
oh god, when you like re-raise like, you know, Jack 5 suited, like a huge squeeze, and then you get like 2 calls and it just comes out like 5, 5, 3.
Jack 5 seems to be a theme with you. I noticed in reading some blog entries. I just recall some live hand you played with Jack 5 at either Mohegan or
at Foxwoods where I lost that like massive pot or whatever. Yeah.
Is that a hand? I don't know. Is PLO or is No Limit your better game?
That's a tough question. I am probably better in terms of if there's some sort of measure of like absolute, you know, skill at a game at No Limit, but I think my edge is probably bigger at PLO.
It seems like now so many players are playing No Limit and specializing in No Limit especially, and then they're branching out into PLO, and there's still a lot of...
Yeah, I think, you know, PLO's gotten much of it. The way No Limit got much tougher about 3 years ago, I think PLO got really much tougher this past year. You know, and it's really ridiculous. Like, I went play the 5K PLO, and this guy at my table who wound up taking a lot of my chips just said to me when we sat down, like, oh, hey, Vanessa, I learned PLO from you, from your videos. And I get that all the time, which is sort of, like, making me cringe at why I was making these videos. But seriously, I mean, I think that, you know, players are definitely getting better at PLO, but there's definitely some room. I don't think it would be a good idea for a player to go out and start now learning PLO, because I think within, you know, another 6 months, a year, it's going to be at the level, you know, that No Limit is. But
so what should a player do?
I don't know if like really good players, like a lot of them are venturing into mixed games. I think if a player's not really good, they probably shouldn't even get involved in poker.
Fantastic promotion.
You're bringing me down so hard.
Oh my god! No, I'm kidding. I'm obviously kidding. I mean, I think that obviously when we're talking about the games being tougher, we're talking about the very high stakes games. When we're talking about whether there's an edge in like 50, 100, No Limit cash, or like the $10,000 buy-in tournaments. I mean, you're talking about buying in mid stakes. Like that's still very, very, very beatable. So
we're also going through. Well, yeah, that's one thing. I mean, a lot of people that we talk to, they just begrudge how the game's gotten so much tougher. They sit down, nobody wants to play with them, but they're playing at the absolute highest stakes. And obviously, now with the internet and with multi-tabling, you can play very low stakes and still be. I mean,
there's a ton of people. You know, like I said, I don't know the names of anybody because I've been out of the poker community so long. But I know there's a couple of stick grinders that just grind like 18 tables of 1-2 No Limit. And wasn't there one guy that made like over $1 million doing that or something like that?
That's why. Yes, that's why I say that.
Yeah.
In the older days, before you were live, probably, you know, when there was just brick and mortar poker, you play one table.
Everyone
it's
was
slow.
terrible. Yeah, but your win rate was like 30 big blinds an hour.
Sure, but if everyone had gotten good, there'd be no exit.
Although it's sort of a paradox in a way, or no, that's not the right word, but I don't know. This is proving my terrible vocabulary, but I don't know the word for it, but it's something where, because, you know, the internet is what caused everyone to get good because you could play so many hands in so many tables, and it's playing so many hands in so many tables is what you're able to do. So, you know,
but we also,
chicken or the egg, I guess.
Right now, there's sort of a plateau. There's some barriers to new players coming in, and when those collapse and there's another wave of new players coming in, of course, that'll help the entire poker economy. It's kind of tough when the natural evolution is that players become better and players who don't become extinct.
Right.
And that's a little bit of what's going on right now.
Right, and I think...
Which isn't long term.
Yeah, I think that's happening to some extent, but I mean, just coming out here and playing these tournaments this year proves that there's still poker to be played. And, like, you know, it's getting much more popular in Europe, and, you know, hopefully... I know I saw there was a new bill out on the legislature, maybe now, for online poker in the U.S. You know, if it gets regulated here, that'll be obviously great for poker. So I think it's just really up in the air right now. No one really knows where it's going to go or what's going to happen, but I don't think it's a certainty that it's going to die out immediately.
Oh, no.
When I believe when you won your bracelet, your opponent, Jamie Pickering, was betting and re-raising blind in many instances.
Yeah, well, that was his best strategy, as it turned out.
Was that because he decided you were just too good? I mean, because that could be a rational strategy against a much better player.
Well, it turned out that, I don't know, maybe it was because he decided, I mean, it was pretty sick, because he, like, would bet the pot blind every single time, and then, like, one hand I had queen...
He'd bet blind on the flop, no matter what.
It was Jack 9-5. I had queen 10-9, or king queen 10. No, I had king queen 10, something, and it was like Jack 9-5 rainbow, so I had a wrap on like a rainbow board, and I check shoved, and he looks down for the first time, he's like, oh, I have a set, okay, I call, and like the next time I check shoved, and he looked down, and he was like, oh, I have aces, like I call, it was like one of those things. Then finally, actually, the tournament director came over and said, like, Jamie, you should take a step back, this is a bracelet event, like, you should go take a break.
That's not a
I know.
tournament director.
I would smack
well, I wanted to, I know.
Not even a closed fist, open hand.
Oh my god, I wanted to, but then I came back, he started looking, and then that's when I won the tournament. So, like I said, it turned out the potting was blind was working out for him. But I don't know. I think he was just some gambling.
When that was happening,
I mean, it makes no sense really.
That could rattle someone like that. Did that rattle you at all, or you?
No, it's like, well, I was also, I guess I had had a few drinks or something, and like it was just like a very jovial atmosphere. And honestly, like I said before, I think now more like with sponsorship stuff and realizing sort of what kind of equity you have on the line for winning things that happen to be prestigious to other people, like. Yeah. I realize that it's important to win bracelets, but at the time, especially, I still hadn't really played very many tournaments, or, I wasn't like a really big tournament player, and I wasn't really planning on going into poker. For me, it was like, and it still is this way, that the money is just more important than, a bracelet. So they asked me after the NAPT, $750 grand, they're like, what's more, what's a better win for you? And it's like, this was over 3 times the amount of money. I mean, it's not even close.
Although winning the bracelet, especially certain ones, has so much ancillary value that there is a lot of extra money that's
absolutely, and I recognize that now for sure. Especially, I think if I were to win my second one, I think that would be something that's, especially because, how few women have won too, and all this stuff. I think just doing that would be a good thing. So I think at this point, I would realize
and winning one on TV or whatever.
Or the main event.
Yeah. I could win that. Although I wouldn't be opposed to taking a second.
Vanessa, it's been a pleasure having you. We know you're going to continue with your 30 to 40% tournament win rate.
I think I'm due then.
Outright.
I'm due for another one.
Not just cash,
2 or 3
outright win.
All right.
No, but it's been a pleasure to talk about all these things and wish you success with your law career. One day, maybe Supreme Court Justice Selbst.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get there without actually like doing any of that, like clerking,
or
doing those important things.
Unseemly.
No, you win a few tournaments.
That's what I'm saying. I heard Lady Kagan likes poker, so she sticks around.
I believe Scalia plays poker every week or something like that.
Maybe I can replace. He'll just appoint me to replace him.
Seat.
He doesn't really care about the whole ideology thing. He'll just go for the poker seat.
You know what? We kid about it, but you have a tremendous future. I mean, besides poker, God knows. I mean, the success you have in poker translated to some other field could be pretty exciting. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. And then you'll remember us and come back.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Write to us at The Scoop at cardplayer.com.